Okay, so I was asked to speak a little bit about the importance and preciousness of having spiritual mentors. So, having a spiritual mentor is really important on the path. If we need teachers to learn how to type and we need teachers to learn how to drive a car, then we certainly need teachers to teach us the path to awakening, which is a much more delicate process than learning to type or drive a car. Yeah. So we definitely need teachers. If we don't have teachers, then we wind up making up our own path to awakening. That very conveniently happens to be exactly what the self centered mind likes. So we don't wind up with awakening, we wind up with a mess. In choosing spiritual mentors, I think it's incredibly important to check out somebody's qualities and not just rush into a relationship. Don't be mesmerized by tall thrones and lots of brocade and big titles. His Holiness Dalai Lama says it's really important. Look at somebody's qualities. Yeah. And so you observe them, you listen to their teachings, you see if they teach according to the general Buddhist teachings, or if they're making something up that sounds great, but that the Buddha didn't teach. Yeah, you look at how they treat other people. Do they have compassion? Are they kind? Uh, are they willing to teach and guide other people, or are they looking out for money and a big following? Do they know the scriptures well? Do they have a good relationship with their own teachers? Do they have good meditation? So we have to check people out and not just rush in, okay? And whoever is our teacher doesn't need to be our friend's teacher, and our friends' teachers don't need to be our teachers. We need to see, who we click with and what kind of practice they teach, and whether that practice actually speaks to our heart and really helps us, okay? So we choose our teachers. If somebody comes along and says, "Oh, you're exactly the perfect disciple. I knew, I had a dream that you would come along," you know, watch it. Yeah. Um, okay. So you choose your teachers. Don't be taken in by big promises and lovely kind of words. Okay. Uh, but make wise choices based not on what pleases your ego. Charisma is not one of the qualities listed in the scriptures for a good teacher. So learn those qualities. They're in one of Maitreya's texts. And then you check somebody out. After you form a relationship with the teacher, then it's up to us how close we want to become to the teacher. Okay, sometimes we want to, really offer service, become very close to that teacher. Sometimes the teacher has thousands of disciples. We can't do that. Or sometimes it's just better to have some kind of distance. His Holiness again says, you know, the the teacher that you live with is often the hardest one to keep a good relationship with, because you live close to them, so it's much easier to pick faults and criticize. Whereas the teachers who have thousands of disciples who you don't necessarily know personally, then it's easy to hold a very good opinion of them and have a lot of trust and faith. Okay, so we want to create a good relationship with a teacher. That doesn't mean we have to see everything they do as perfect. That you may hear about that, but that's actually a practice for people who are practicing Tantra. Yeah. So what we don't have to see the Buddha as see the Guru as the Buddha at the beginning, But we do want to have an attitude of respect and gratitude and appreciation for the teacher, and to cultivate that. Because if we just let our ordinary mind go and we start picking faults, like we pick faults with everybody else we know, then we're going to wind up in a ditch. And here's the person who's trying to lead us to awakening, and we're going to be sitting there in our mind thinking they don't know what they're talking about, and they're manipulating, and they're da 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 da. And then we won't be able to listen to the teachings they teach because we're imputing our negative junk on top of them. Okay, so we want to have an attitude of trust and faith. If things happen that are upsetting to you, then you need to go to speak to the teacher about it and ask what was happening and what was going on. But first, before you do that, check if, we have to check, is it just my buttons that are getting pushed by that teaching? Or is it really that the teacher is doing something where they're breaking their precepts or extorting money from the Dharma Center, or, doing something that isn't, proper conduct. So we have to be able to differentiate, because lots of times we just project our own garbage on the teacher, our own negative motivations we impute on them. They say something, they give a teaching that pushes our buttons and points out to us something we're doing that's not so good, and then we blame them instead of looking and looking at our own behavior. Okay, but when you can really appreciate what our teachers have done in order to get the education that they have, in order to do the practice they have, and to appreciate also what they give up in order to teach us, yeah, then it becomes much easier to have a really positive attitude that appreciates them and appreciates what they do, and then to have that kind of respect and gratitude, yeah, because who else on this planet is going to lead us out of samsara? There may be lots of people who love us dearly and please our ego immeasurably by saying how wonderful we are and giving us presents, but do those people have the ability to lead us on the path to awakening or not? That's what we need to look at, yeah. And so to treasure those relationships with our teachers and to create a good relationship with them, yeah, offering service, making offerings, and so on. Okay, and particularly practicing the teachings. Yeah. Now, to practice the teaching, that doesn't mean that you only practice what they said to you individually. And the teachings that you heard in a group, well, they were given for the group, so I don't need to practice them. But, you were in your teacher's room and he said, bring me a cup of tea. And like all of a sudden, I got to get him a cup of tea. This is my Dharma practice. Get out of the kitchen. I'm making him a cup of tea. He asked me, I'm doing this, And then whatever, your teacher's teaching during Dharma class, well, he said that to everybody, so that's not so important. Okay, that's not it. No, what you're learning in Dharma class is what you should practice. Okay, and so don't just hang on to, things that are said in private, or all the time be knocking on the door. What do I do? How do I do this? Tell me, what should I practice? They're telling you during teachings. So, yeah, put it into practice. If you have questions, go ask. Yeah, of course.